Cool.
Let's
Yeah,
do it.
well, let's hop in. It'll just be a good conversation. We'll get into your world a little bit. So, again, thank you so much for taking a minute out. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, same here.
So, let's begin our conversation. I always begin with the COVID question because it was such a big deal for all of us. So, 5 years ago, we were really navigating this thing, it was getting heavy. How did you make it through the COVID period, and how has it changed the way that you approach life and business today?
So COVID, I remember golfing down in Cocoa Beach, Florida that spring, early spring, and I heard like the college basketball tournament had been canceled. I got a little ESPN notification on my phone, and it was like that's when I realized like, wow, this is bigger than just an outbreak or something. So during that time, I actually owned a restaurant prior to COVID. So I owned a restaurant for 14 years, and I sold it in 2018. So a year and a half before COVID came.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much that moment that I was golfing that because after I'd sold it, it was doing fairly well. I had 25 employees. We were growing like crazy, and but it's a good time to keep a business. It's also a good time to sell a business when things are going well. And I chose to sell it because it's not what I want to do uh, for what I thought would be the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But I'd always looked back after selling it, thinking, man, maybe I should have kept it. Like there was just this little bit of not remorse or regret, but just this little rose-colored glasses. I was like, it wasn't that bad. I should have held on to it. And then when that moment, when Governor Whitmer, who's our Michigan governor, she shut down restaurants and all these things were happening, and it was right then I was like, I just had this sense of like I will never even think the words of I wish I still had the restaurant because I don't think I would have survived or at least done well through the COVID transition. We were a breakfast restaurant, not really a takeout friendly location, and I probably would have just shut it down in all reality.
Yeah.
So that changed my perspective of sort of holding back on the past a little bit to finally be like, nope, that past is in the past, and I'm never going back. And I was in one sense, I was very thankful. And the restaurant's still open. It was a big company that bought it, and they're doing fine. But for me personally, there was a lot of thankfulness during COVID because I didn't own that business. So that's one big thing that sticks out. The other thing was COVID was sort of the catalyst for me to start my coaching career. So I'd taken uh, that year and a half to try to figure out my next move. I'd gotten a part-time job at UPS because I'm an early morning person. I was loading the brown trucks before they go out on the roads, and it was actually really enjoyable and physically invigorating job. But that wasn't my long-term play, and it took me a little while to figure out what the next thing I was wanted to coach, but I had this strong sense of resistance to going into coaching. And finally, when COVID came, I was like, what am I doing? Like, it was sort of this jolt of a wake-up call to pursue what I was passionate about and financially commit to a couple different coaching programs and platforms. And so that was really my COVID experience was a period of, you know, sort of inwardness because there was less being social. We were inside the house most of the time. We homeschooled, so that felt relatively natural. But it was a time to reflect and then a time to start taking action. And those are my primary sort of core memories from 2020.
I just moved in January 2020, and I remember I'm a big baseball fan, so I finally got MLB Network. And I grew up loving baseball, so I was ecstatic to be able to watch all the spring training games. And
Hmm.
then everything just shut down. And I remember at one point I saw a clip of an umpire leaving the field, and everybody was like, "Oh, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be back in a month," something like that. Because it was spring break time. Everybody thought, "Okay, we'll be back in 2 weeks." And I remember one umpire at one point, I read an article and he looked over his shoulder and said, "We're not going to see you guys for a while." And it just sent a shiver up my spine. Like somehow he knew. And I just dismissed it. I was in denial. I was like, no, come on. It's spring. It's time to play. So it was weird. And sports were kind of a catalyst for that because things were getting canceled. Everything was falling off. And that's, I think, when everybody was like, wow, like concerts, all of our entertainment. When we saw that happening, it was like, this is something different. you know.
Yeah, when they canceled March Madness, I'm like, this
Yeah.
isn't normal.
Yeah. Yeah. For people to lose money to like willingly be like, no, that's when I got alarmed. So it was
Hmm.
wild. So let me ask you this. If I put you in front of a bunch of kids at career day in a school, they're 12 years old and they want to know what you do for a living today, how do you explain it?
Well, I have a 10-year-old, so this is a relevant age group that I'm talking to.
Yeah.
I would start with I help people. I help mainly business owners. So anyone in this room have a mom or a dad that owns their own business. It could be something in the trades, like a plumber or an electrician. It could be something professionally, like then are your parents attorneys or um, CPAs or anything in the financial professional service. So I would start with that and say, do you know anyone? Do you know what a business owner is? That get them locked in on that idea.
Yeah.
And then I would say that business owners are usually extremely good at what they do. They are great plumbers, they are great CPAs, they are great attorneys, doctors, what have you. Uh, but like all of us, we can't be good at everything. And so I partner with people like your parents, if they own a business, to help them work on the business side of things. So managing people, managing the financial aspects, all the other areas that a lot of business owners hate dealing with because they just want to do their craft. That is the thing that I help them with. So if your parents have a business, they have employees. Managing employees can be really challenging. I help them come up with strategies and ways to do that. So the people that they employ really enjoy working for your parents. And and I would maybe go into marketing a little bit and say, all of you have seen commercials on TV or on YouTube or listening to Amazon Music. Um, that is when businesses are trying to get more customers. I help business owners figure out how to market, what they should market, um, how to stand out from a crowd. If you were if you were to go to when you go to the store, if you're gonna go to fast food, if you want to go to fast food and you have the choice between Taco Bell, McDonald's, and Wendy's, how do you decide what you want to choose? It's the same way when we have to make decisions about what doctor to go to or what attorney to use or what CPA we should use, is I help those people stand out so the right customers will choose them instead of someone down the street, just like how you would choose Taco Bell instead of Wendy's or McDonald's instead of Burger King. And those are really the things that I do is help business owners make decisions, especially around people and marketing to help them grow their business.
So what did you want to be when you were that age? What was your dream job?
I don't know if I had one.
Yeah.
I talked to my wife about this and she always just wanted to be a mom. Like that was her thing.
Yeah.
The earliest memory of what I wanted to do was a teacher. I don't know when that started. And I thought I was going to be a math teacher because I was good at math. So all through junior high and high school, math came very easy to me, and it felt like a good fit. And then I got to senior year calculus, and I was like, "Oop, I've been climbing the wrong ladder because I just could not figure out calculus." So I dropped calculus, dropped the idea of being a teacher, and said, "You know what? I'm going to go into computers." So I went to college to go into computer information systems, networking, that felt like the other natural role. I did a little bit of entrepreneurial stuff. I taught some computer classes when I was to like senior citizens when I was like in a freshman or sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't have a real big like this is what I want to be. I don't think we had a fantastic what's the role in school? They have not the principal or vice principal, but the person that helps you decide what you want to be someday. I forget that position, but I don't think they did a great job of really exploring options. And right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't know if my parents really instilled that idea of what do you want to be when you grow up. My mom was in medical. My dad worked at the university in mechanical, and so neither of those were attractive to me. So yeah, I don't really know what I wanted to be when I was younger.
So, are you originally from Michigan?
I am. I'm from northern Michigan, pretty much the as far north as you can go without going into Canada.
So, what were the foundational elements of business that have led you to be an owner and a successful business mind to help others get to that place? What were the ingredients that were planted into you that have evolved into your career today?
Mhm. I think a low-hanging fruit would be, having a systems mindset. Systems are, I mean, a business is simply a collection of different systems. Every result we get is from a system, whether it's weight loss, whether it's relationships, and it may not be documented, but there's a process we go through. Our morning routine is a system. So thinking about business as a system, and for me, it starts to get real when you start to separate the business from the owner. A lot of business owners, they think of their business as an extension of who they are, and there's this sort of intimate connection. And I had that when when I owned my restaurant for a number of years. I owned a window cleaning business through college, and then bought a restaurant right after college. But it makes sense that business owners feel like this is an extension of who I am. But that that has its pros because it's a lot of business are relationship based. So you hang your shingle and hey, now you're working with Andrew and I'm going to help you do X, Y, Z. But from a scalability side or from just a sustainable side, it's hard when you and your business are one. So one of the biggest mindsets for me is treating a business as a separate living, breathing entity that I am currently in charge of caretaking, but maybe someday like it was with my last business, I won't be the caretaker anymore. And it can be a little different in coaching as I'm a coach right now, but building a coaching practice. Someday it may become more of a separate entity. It's still pretty much me and the business are one, but I'm working at creating that division. So by when I work with business owners that have employees and different things, helping them really realize that they are not the business and the business is not them. So that is, I think, foundational because then you can make decisions where it's always helpful if you can sort of remove yourself from the situation and look at something objectively and think, okay, if I was the puppeteer holding the strings, what would I do to this entity or for this entity? So that is a foundational belief is looking at things as a separate entity. Another one is my brand is called Built to Benefit. And I think at the core, when you build a business that benefits the different stakeholders in place, you make decisions that can be more sustainable and long lasting. So I look at four sort of stakeholders. I look at the owner, I look at employees, customers, and then the community that you reside in. And when I own my restaurant, uh, I really noticed the difference that a business could make to the first three, but to the community. So it was a generic diner and it became a very intentional, allergy-friendly, clean eating breakfast and lunch restaurant. And my priority was making sure that any dietary restriction you had, there could be something great for breakfast and great for lunch. So it was pretty much, I was super like, all are welcome at my place. And I would talk to moms that their kid was celiac, and this was the first time they had chicken strips at a restaurant because we had gluten-free chicken strips, or vegans that struggled to get, vegan pancakes because those were rare unless you made them at home. And really seeing the impact, how a business can truly benefit its community, and that was obviously benefiting customers as well. And that really grew our business is being a business that figured out what's the greatest way I can benefit our community, our customers, our staff. When I sold, we had really good staff retention because I created a little more sense of ownership. I had some incentive plans in place. I had regular meetings with all my staff on a one-to-one basis, much more frequently than many business owners. But and I think a lot of we'll say do-gooders in the business space can almost obsess about benefiting employees, customers, and society that they forget that the business also has to benefit them and their family because if it doesn't, they're gonna get burnt out. I'm sure like a lot of like nonprofits and different small business they're so altruistic about the others that there's a lack of put your own face mask on first before helping others. So I really want to make sure when I work with business owners that we are focused on your employees, your customers, the community you're in. But if you're not being taken care of, if we don't have the right things in place to make it where this business works for your marriage, for how you want to raise your kids, for your family life, then you're probably not going to last long enough to have a real impact on those other stakeholders. So it's not a first then, it's sort of a both and type of scenario, but really thinking through that lens of and what I'm doing right now benefiting me, my customers, my employees, and the community. And if not, then we can get really curious on what's not aligned and sort of address those issues. So that'd be another pillar. And for me, from a marketing perspective, it's all about positioning. It's all about what people think about when they think about our brand. So when I owned a restaurant, it was very generic. People thought about, oh, that's what my grandparents eat. It was just a greasy spoon. When I sold it, when people heard Noble Restaurant, they thought allergy friendly, gluten free, tons of great vegan options. And the nice thing is we can have a lot of influence as business owners on what people think about when they think about us or our brand.
Yeah.
When I think of McDonald's, I think of there's one thought that comes to mind about anything else for me. When I think of BMW, there's one thought, ultimate driving machine. When I think about Wendy's, I still think of the square hamburgers for some reason. Arby's, if I'm a vegan, I'm not thinking Arby's. I'm thinking Arby's because we have the meats. So in the marketing space, if you can figure out what your customers desire and align all of your marketing efforts and the deliverable work that you do behind that to align to what your customers want, then when your customers think of your brand, they're gonna think of that one thing. So with my restaurant, it was for vegans. It was like they got really good vegan foods. For Celix, it's a super safe restaurant. I'm not gonna get sick. Andrews put a lot of systems in place to know there's no contamination. But how that happened didn't happen naturally. I had to continue to remind people. I sent text messages. I put Facebook posts saying, our entire fryer is gluten free. We don't cross contaminate. Here's what we do. We use gloves and this. So I think a lot of business owners are really commodities.
Yeah.
Whether it's a tree service, an electrician, a CPA, they're doing their thing, but they're not being intentional on why they're different. And if business owners could really get clear on how to position themselves in the mind of their customer, they would attract better customers and grow more profitably. So I think those are three sort of high level beliefs or postures I bring to my clients and myself.
What about inspirations? What about heroes, whether it's business or personal? Who has really fueled you to become who you are?
I think first and foremost, it's my relation with Jesus. I think he lived and died a life that, even with all the uh, political and religious turmoil, whether it's present day or past, um, I think if people look at the heart, um, he spoke most on bringing the kingdom to earth. And what is the kingdom? It's loving others. It's taking care of the poor, the the needy, the orphan. It's sharing when you have more than you need. And these are good human traits, but that would be my first and most prominent source of inspiration. Um, Other than that, I get inspired by personal relationships that I have in my life. There's three guys that I've known since college, so for the last 20 years, and in three different categories. One is just how he shows up in the world. One is how he looks at the social issues in the world, and the other is how he cares about people. And I model, or I attempt to model how I'm being, and I think about Joe, Matt, and Drew, and those three guys that have played a small to big role in my life, and think what would they do in this situation? How can I be more like them in their certain specific areas? So I don't think any of them really know that, but they've really inspired me to become a better image of my father-in-law. He's We just bought a house 3 months ago, and he's retired. He's highly skilled in all things home improvement. And for the last 2.5 months, he's shown up at my house almost every weekday, and we've just been working on things, whether it's plumbing things, tearing down and building walls, drive, like the whole thing. And he has a not perfect by any means, but I love just seeing how he thinks and how he looks at problems. For me, let's fire up YouTube and see what, someone's doing. But for him, he's an architect by nature and by career. And my wife's family actually comes from, both of her grandpas were architects, dad's an architect. So there's this high level of design and intentionality with decisions that I maybe didn't get through the bloodline, but I get it through marriage. So that genealogy is really inspiring to think very intelligently and intentionally on whether it's aesthetic design or business process design. Like let's yeah, let's just be intentional with what we do. So those are some very present sources of inspiration for me.
So when you look at the arc of your career and everything you've accomplished up to this point, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
At this point, I think selling my business, selling my restaurant, that was if there's marriage and the birth of your children, that the day I sold the business is in that mix. Not doesn't It's not above those mix, but it's a core memory day. I remember that moment, the day I signed it, like, and part of that is I struggled for so long to sell. I listed it for like 10 years. I 1 year in or 2 years into owning it, I hated owning the restaurant. It's a tough business. And so there was about a middle decade. The first year I bought it, I was naive, had no clue what I was doing. I was 23. The last 2 to 3 years, it was going really well. Life was great. That middle decade was a challenging time. Working 7 days a week. My wife was working with. She has her master's in marriage and family therapy. She put that career on hold, and we ran it as a couple for a good 5 or 6 years until my firstborn was born. And it was tough. 7 days a week, nights, 5 nights a week. Not much profits for a lot of that. So it was this for so many years. I was like, is this what my life is going to be? Because I had debt with it, so I didn't want to go into debt. Like I didn't want to sell it and lose money or file for bankruptcy, and I wasn't going to do that. But I felt so stuck, and to a lot with my wife's help, to be able to turn around the business and build something that someone else would come by and say, you know what? You've created something of value. It's really the creation of of a separate entity, whether it's a work of art or a book or
Yeah.
something. The act of creation is pretty fantastic, especially when it gets recognized and appreciated. And that's really what it was. As entrepreneurs, we're creators,
Yep.
and so to even though I bought the restaurant, I completely it was nothing like it was when I bought it 14 years later, and getting the acknowledgement of Andrew, you've created something that has value in the marketplace, and I'm going to write you a check to purchase it from you. And now he's the caretaker of this separate entity. So that's probably the highlight.
Yeah.
Some smaller ones are when currently in my business when my clients just have great wins. I have a client that just paid out $10,000 in bonuses for Q3 to her staff of like five. And because we've put some things in place where her employees are hitting their numbers and she's able to share some of the blessings of owning the business with her employees. So that was a huge win just recently, to see that come to fruition. So, there's these mini or micro wins that I get to be a part of every month with my clients. But as far as that pinnacle one, definitely selling the business.
So at the end of the day, Andrew, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that you work with, that you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Caring, first and foremost, I truly care. That caring can come across as a little blunt because I speak my mind a little bit too uh, free flowingly. So that's an opportunity for me to improve. But I truly I care for my employees. I mean, for my clients. I care for my kids, my wife, my relationships outside. So that's probably for me personally, it's how I feel. I don't know if that comes across all the time because I can be a little thick-skinned or a little rough around the edges, but that's my perception of me. And I'm working on, and a lot of it's my tone. My wife says, she said, if you could just work on your tone, it's not what you say, it's just how it comes across. So there's some opportunity for growth there. But if I could dial that in, I think the thoughts I have of who I am in my head could finally really start to come out the way I envision them coming out.
So if anyone out there has questions, they want to hire you, they want to get to the next level, the next step, where's the best place to go to do that?
Yeah, builttobenefit.com is my website, or they can find me on LinkedIn at Andrew Lamppa. Those would be the best two places to connect.
Wonderful. And I will put those links in the show notes. Andrew, what a joy. Thank you, sir. Thank you for opening up your world. I appreciate it, and continued success with everything.
Joe, pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.